Hi, I'm Jennifer Hurlis, President of PartnerSource, and thanks for joining me today. So this is a quick 30-minute webinar. If you're familiar with GoToMeeting, you're able to submit questions through the chat feature, and my intent is to answer those at the end of the webinar if we have any questions. So I first delivered this presentation at the annual PartnerSource conference in October of 2019. And we got some good feedback, so we decided to rework it a bit and offer it through this webinar because I tell you the time that we're in right now, it seems really relevant. We could all use a dose of advocacy and support right now. I think no one more than the injured workers who are at home recovering, or even those essential workers who may be injured while working through this pandemic. So because PartnerSource's focus is solely on the designing and implementing and support of Texas injury benefit plans, a lot of what I'm going to offer today kind of stems around that. So when I talk about some of the plan provisions and some of the advocacy principles, they are most easily incorporated in the Texas benefit plan environment. However, some of these concepts are universal. It extends beyond risk management and really even beyond your professional life. You may find something in here that is helpful in your personal life as well. So let's get started. So for the last several years, the risk management industry has been focused on implementing a new type of claims administration model. It's one more focused on the injured worker's perspective. So the concept is this, that we need to be focused on how we're engaging with injured workers, what we say and how we say it, how that is perceived by the injured worker, and really less about our own internal efficiencies and just kind of how we always have done it. Advocacy is the new buzzword, but really it's all about customer service. It's all about taking care of people, stepping towards someone, all in an effort really to maintain a relationship and generate a better outcome, because that's what it's all about. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to start, we've got 3 blocks, and I'm going to start first with the basics of advocacy. I'm going to highlight the practical takeaways from the risk management industry through in this section, the basics. Then, recognizing that this doesn't get us where we want to be, we're going to draw upon other industries who have really studied the customer experience and the consumer. And in the 3rd block, we're going to take those principles from other industries and apply them to our own, all in an effort to elevate care and, again, get the best outcome that we can. So the first recommendation in the basics of advocacy is to eliminate industry jargon. If you think back to when you first entered the claims industry or risk management, those phrases, that terminology that once sounded like a foreign language is easy to you now, but it can be very intimidating to an injured worker. Things like compensable, lost time, investigation, those are words that can put someone on edge, especially if it's not part of your everyday vocabulary. So the point of this is, if we're really trying to think about how we're engaging with injured workers, we shouldn't be using terms like ABD, PABD, adverse benefit determination, other ERISA terms like that people just don't understand, because that's just going to create distance. The second principle in the basics of advocacy is something many of our clients have done a great job for years, and that's demonstrate kindness. We're fortunate to work with some programs who a long time ago have implemented things in their claims procedures, like sending get well cards, or when someone has had a surgery, sending flowers or food delivery. It's in a setting where we're faced with a potential tort on just about any claim. We learned a long time ago that stepping towards someone and being kind can really go a long way. So obviously it's not right for every claim, but the point is that we ought to be looking for those opportunities to insert that into our processes, where that act of kindness could really make a meaningful difference to the injured worker. Okay, the third and fourth on this slide, well, first, the third is communication. And we know communication is a key to a good outcome. That's why in the Texas Injury Benefit Plan setting, PartnerSource recommends meaningful contact on every claim, not just lost time claims. We do a lot of communicating through email and voicemail and phone, but as technology changes, and the means of communication have broadened, the risk management industry has been a little slow to adapt to some of those changes. So, and once again, when we're allowed to sit in a coffee shop across from one another or in an office building, I would never underestimate the power of a face-to-face meeting in resolving a complex claim. That can make a huge difference. So the question here to you is, how can we communicate in a manner and a frequency that's desired by the injured worker, not just what our procedures call for, or not because that's just the way we've always done it, but really giving thought to what would be most meaningful to that injured worker. What do they understand? What's convenient for them? So the fourth point in the basics of advocacy is employer or management involvement. We never want our managers sending injured workers to the ER by themselves, or but the point in the basics of advocacy from the risk management journals is that it's not just the contact from risk management or the adjuster at the third-party administrator. Who the employee really wants to hear from is their manager. Those individuals that they're working with on a daily basis, that's who they want to make sure, still cares about them. So to the extent that we can get our managers involved with an employee's recovery, or just simply acknowledging that someone's hurt and we want them back to work, those are basics of a good, strong advocacy program. So really, advocacy, it's all about good customer service. It's about revising our internal processes with the injured worker's perspective in mind. Not what makes sense for us again, but what makes sense for them. So let's take it the next step, and let's look at what some other industries are doing. So first, the modern consumer expects personalized service. I know for me personally, if a hotel can remember my name when I'm checking in and that I mentioned that I was here for a meeting, and then the next time they see me, they remember and say, Ms. Harless, how was your meeting? That blows me away. It's something so simple, but it just told me that they were listening to me, one, when I was checking in, that they cared, that they remembered me. It just comes across as really thoughtful. And I started thinking about the perspective, what would really personalized service look like in the work injury setting? And I think it would be pretty similar. If, for example, I had a test and I'm afraid that this test is going to be painful, or that it's going to involve enclosed spaces and I'm a little claustrophobic, I think if my adjuster remembered that, and then the next time we spoke, they asked, it wasn't so bad, was it? Or, tell me about it. I know you were worried about it. I think that goes a long way in developing a relationship with that person. But when you're dealing with 70 to 80 claims, it is nearly impossible to remember that level of detail. I think we need some claim systems to make that a little easier for us. I don't know of any claim system that has a special place for that, but I do know that these claim systems have lots of data fields, maybe even some fields that could be repurposed for this, that would be helpful in helping the adjuster remember some of those points to maintain and establish that connection. Okay, number two, response time. Our expectations on when we're going to hear from somebody and when we're going to have an answer are completely different. Think about, really, how long will you wait for a website to load? Or how long are you willing to wait to be on hold? Our expectations are completely different now. So, in our environment, when people are waiting to hear from us, they're actually could be in pain. if we're not responding to them, or at least just acknowledging the injury the same day, we're probably not meeting their expectations. But think about it too in the injury benefit plan setting, where we require really timely notice, sometimes end of shift or within 24 hours with good cause exceptions. If we're requiring that of our injured workers, I think we should also mirror that same level of urgency when acknowledging the injury. So I would encourage us, to the extent that we can do that, I would recommend, at least if it's not a recorded interview or a full contact, at least just touching base and just saying, hey, I understand you were injured and let's talk about this tomorrow, or something to that effect. Finally, number 3, avoiding the handoff and really making connections. No one likes a transfer when you're calling to get some help. But one place where employers really need to improve is on the interplay and the overlap with HR and benefits and claims. I know we can't all be experts in everything. There are good reasons why we have separate departments, but these departments and units continue to silo themselves in ways that really aren't helpful to the injured worker. Many of us are thinking, I'm not in a position to do that. I'm front line, but there are things you can do. First, I would never underestimate the change that can be generated from the front line. You just got to be willing to speak up and try something different. But let's think about what we could do the next time we get a call that's more HR or benefits focused. If instead of passing that individual to that other department, you said, hey, hold on, let me see if I can get my contact on the phone, and you were there to make that connection, to have that bridge for the employee, I think that would go a long way in really establishing that connection and give you really a better chance for a better outcome and a better relationship. So for the consumer, the way you show a business that you don't feel appreciated, it's to take your business elsewhere. In the claims world, the way an injured worker shows dissatisfaction or confusion is to get an attorney. And there are lots of studies out there about what drives individuals to an attorney, but really I found this off a plaintiff attorney's website, and I thought it said it all. Fired employees don't call lawyers like me because the law was broken. Regular folks have no clue whether the law was broken. They call me because they feel dehumanized. So let's move into our final block and talk about how we can prevent injured workers from feeling dehumanized. So in this last section, we're going to talk about 3 ways to elevate care. Beyond demonstrating guidance, we're going to take it up a level and demonstrate empathy. We're then going to talk about moving beyond elimination of jargon and really applying mindful administration to our programs. And beyond simply engagement, we want to talk about delivering an unexpected value at an unexpected time. Okay, so first, empathy. Well, you have to really understand what is empathy. And for me, I always kind of got empathy and sympathy confused. But the gist is that empathy is feeling with someone, while sympathy is more of an intellectual acknowledgement of someone's state. But I love this video from Brené Brown, who really explains what empathy is.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you can climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Oh, I love that video. So what we've learned, to show empathy requires two things. First, understanding someone's mindset, and then verbally acknowledging it, what they're feeling. So in our setting, the calls many of you are going to receive stem around fear, confusion, anxiety, uncertainty. They may feel guarded. So some possible empathic statements that could be made would be, I can understand how frustrating it is when, or I'd be asking the same questions if I were you. Those can be very helpful. The second takeaway then is showing genuine interest, providing some reassurance. And I love that last statement that she made, because sometimes you don't know what to say, and just saying, I don't know what to say, I'm just so thankful you shared that with me, is really can make a huge difference. But other things that you can do is we can figure this out together, or I'm going to be here for you through this. Maybe not so much in your professional life, but in your personal life, sometimes power words like oh, or oh my goodness, or wow, can really take a step towards that individual that you see it the same way that we do. And underneath that crossed out red X under there are words like, well, at least, or don't worry, or calm down. That's not going to be helpful. So to round out this section, I want to end with a video of showing how my favorite Modern Family character, Phil Dunphy, understands and applies empathy.
I'm thinking of getting bangs.
Ooh, you totally should. You would be so cute with bangs. You have the face for it. I don't. Oh, there's my better half. Kim, would you mind? Thank you. Hey, honey, where are you?
Oh, I'm on my way to Downey.
Oh, did you know Karen and Richard Carpenter grew up in Downey?
What a random and not helpful fact, Phil. I'm sorry. I'm having kind of a rough day.
Yeah, I'm kind of having a rough day myself.
Look, Phil, I need you to take care of dinner for me.
What's wrong?
Oh, Alex ripped Haley's favorite sweater, and now I'm driving around from store to store trying to find the exact same one before Haley finds out.
Don't do that. Just explain to her what happened.
Haley's not gonna understand.
Sure she will.
No, Phil, you don't understand. I'm trying to avoid this turning into a whole big thing.
And just get her something close. She'll never know the difference.
Phil, could you just take care of dinner, sweetie? That's all I'm asking. That's it.
I'm just saying there's a simpler way to do this.
There is no simpler way. Just make dinner. Thank you.
Hello? What? Okay, I'm confused. You're saying that if she tells me she has a problem, I'm not supposed to help her?
Not unless she asks for your help.
But if she lets me help her, I can make her problem go away.
That is such a male thing to say.
Well, forgive me for being a man.
Mango or kiwi?
Ooh, kiwi.
When you say, do this or do that, all she's hearing is, I'm smarter than you.
Believe me, she doesn't think that.
She doesn't want you to solve her problems. She just wants you to give her support so that she can solve her problems herself.
Yes, and sometimes she just wants a sympathetic ear.
Whoa. Whoa. Maybe it's all the creams, but that just made sense, girlfriends. So if Claire says, I hate getting stuck in traffic, I shouldn't say, maybe you should leave earlier, or don't get on the freeway. I should just say, I know, it's so frustrating.
Yes, that's
Really?
Yes.
And if she says, the waiter I had today was so rude, I shouldn't say, maybe you should just order something on the menu for once. I should just say, what a jerk. And if she says, Phil, the TV's driving me crazy, I should just say, I know, there is not enough quality programming for women.
No. Turn off the damn TV.
Okay, now I'm confused again.
Okay. So before we move past empathy, I want to talk about one thing called compassion fatigue. This is the concept that, we're all born with the instinct to empathize. Our brains have these mirror motor neurons that actually allow us to simulate what another person is feeling. It comes, again, more naturally to some than others. But the point is that when you're interacting with injured workers every day, all day long, this sort of sustained empathy can turn into a real emotional burden. It's especially true in professions like nursing or social work or teaching of high-risk kids. But I am convinced it happens in the claims world. That notion of the jaded adjuster, I think, is really just someone who's experienced compassion fatigue. So I put a couple of points here for you to consider. For one, simply just listen to yourself. If you find yourself mostly negativity is coming out, or you're struggling to have empathy for someone who is in pain, or I don't know, maybe you rolled your eyes when we talked about some of those empathic statements, those could be an indication that you're experiencing some compassion fatigue. So this is kind of more of a public service announcement for mental health generally. There are real consequences to caring deeply for other people. So we need to pay attention to that. To those that are running claims offices, third-party administrators, or claims unit, I would really look to acknowledge that with your workforce, to step towards them, maybe find a way to allow them to vent, to get some of these things out, and to talk about that together as a group. I know, but again, if you're still struggling, the one recommendation that I would have is just to focus on having more positive interactions than negative for one day, and keep build on that. That's a good place to start. So the second way to elevate care that we're going to talk about is mindful administration. And you know how sometimes it's just better to show you what mindful administration is not. So that's what I want to do with this next video from Meet the Parents.
Enjoy your flight. Thanks. Hello. Oh, I'm sorry. We're only boarding rows 9 and above right now. You'll have to wait.
Well, I'm in row 8.
Please step aside, sir.
It's just one row. Don't you think it's okay if I...
We'll call your row momentarily. Step aside, sir. Thank you for waiting. We'd like to continue boarding the aircraft now. We're now boarding all rows, please. All remaining rows. Hello. Enjoy your flight.
So I think that's a great example of what not to do. But what's great about that is that she is very pleasant. She is nice. She's smiling. She's following the rules, and she's doing it with kindness in her voice. But she is totally oblivious to the circumstances and why what she's doing doesn't make any sense. So I want to talk a little bit about how to avoid this. Mindful administration means really paying attention to the circumstances. It means avoiding autopilot. We know what autopilot is. That's that feeling that you get sometimes when you're driving and you don't even remember how you got home, but you did. There is a really good time and place for decisions and thought processes and tasks that are done on autopilot. I mean, you can do it fast. It's very intuitive. You don't really have to think a lot about it. So there is a good time and place for that. And in the claims profession, we do have, to some extent, some things that you feel like you know are task-based. You can find yourself on autopilot. Mindful administration requires a much slower, more logical approach, really so that you can recognize an issue and solve that problem. You cannot recognize complex issues when you're on autopilot. You're just going to miss it. So I recognize we have preached for years about the importance of following the terms of your injury benefit plan, so it is not applied in a discriminatory manner. That still is very important. But anywhere you have bright line rules in your plan that require some action on the part of an injured worker, like time frame to report or to seek treatment or return to work, compliance issues, whatever those might be, mindful administration requires that you make some room for working with extenuating circumstances. Now, partner source benefit plans build in the concept of a good cause on some of those, but just simply blindly following rules for the sake of following the rule, that is a sure way of creating distance. And if you remember what really drives individuals to attorneys, it's feeling dehumanized. So when you're approaching somebody, when you're approaching someone and you have what seems to you like a very complex question, but you're getting someone on autopilot, that's a definite way to make that person feel disconnected. So we need mindful administration now in this environment, especially. Most Texas injury benefit plans are going to require those receiving benefits to do certain things within certain periods of time, like return to work or attend an appointment. While we're in a pandemic, you should absolutely be mindfully applying those terms of your plan, given the circumstances that we're under. You should, of course, be relaxing some of the return to work rules while we're in a shelter in place. Obviously, any provisions about treatment with a certain period of time. Mindful administration is all about reasonableness, and it's using those words, applying those rules reasonably given the circumstances. So I want to conclude with this section. Avoid applying rules for the sake of applying the rule. Try to stay away from autopilot when you're talking to individuals and you're taking recorded statements, and really embrace being a single tasker instead of a multitasker. We all make better decisions when we are engaged, when we're focused, and when we're methodical. And being outside of autopilot is really what enables you to do that. Okay, so let's move into our last recommendation. Just a couple of points on this that I wanted to make was really, there is nothing more uplifting than receiving something unexpected. It can really make your day. Anybody can do this, but for especially people who have the privilege of working with others that are going through struggles in their life, whether it be healthcare or in claims, teaching. If you're presented with this real opportunity that if we can simply recognize it and think creatively, we can really make huge difference in the lives of people who are struggling. We just have to be willing to look up and do something. So I just did a quick little search on the internet, and I pulled some things that I thought demonstrated the value of the unexpected. So this first picture is this woman from her hospital room, and they did this whole news story. I forgot which city, but they did this whole news story on it. And she started putting signs up in her window for this construction crew that was working down below. And it really made a big impact to that crew, so much so that they called the news station and did a whole story on this. The second one is something you may have seen something similar to this, but this was in the hospitality setting where a little boy had left something that was really important to him and wrote to the hotel. And instead of just sending it back, they sent it back together with these pictures and this note of all the adventures that the little animal had while he was away. Things like helping out in IT and security. He had a spa day. He laid by the pool. All things that really were small, but were delivered in such a way that really created a connection. It created a connection. And that's really what it's all about. So this concludes the presentation for today. I'm going to look up here to see if we've got any questions. Go ahead and submit any questions if you might have any. I have one. What is an example of a kindness that someone showed you that made an impression? That's a good one. There are so many. I do have one real life example that I noticed. It was just earlier this week. So I ordered a rug. It was really exciting because we're sequestered or quarantined in our homes. To get a package is a great thing. I was waiting for this rug. I finally called the retailer, and she said, it looks like there's something wrong with UPS. So I immediately start thinking, okay, now I'm going to have to call UPS. And what do we talk about? That is the customer handoff right there. I was expecting to be handed off, but instead what she said was, hold on, let me call my UPS contact, and I'll hold on the line and I'll see what they say. So she got back, she came back on, so I'm still on hold, went back, resolved my issue, and came back to me. And I was so thankful for that. She didn't have to do it, but it really demonstrated customer service, and I so appreciated it. So I want to say thank you. No more questions. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. And please remember to follow PartnerSource on LinkedIn.